didn't say anything, but I was like,
Second, 2025 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:01. Have three board members present tonight: Board Member Scales, Board Member Langley, and Board Member Smith. We'll start with citizen comments. This is open for citizens to be heard on any issue or concern. If you would like to speak on a specific item on the agenda, please wait until the citizen comment period for that item. For all citizen comments, please fill out a speaker card and hand it to staff. Come up to the microphone and state your name and address, and limit your comments to 2 minutes. And again, we'll have specific time for each item, so this is kind of general citizen comments. Yep, if our IT staff or somebody could come in and help us with mics, that would be awesome. Either that or we can scream and yell in the mic. We will give it a couple minutes to see if they can help us out. I'm normally extremely loud, so I'm cautious to boom a voice, but I guess if y'all can't hear, we're probably not getting picked up online either, so I think we probably just need to turn up the mics in the box over there. I'll keep talking. That may help you out over there. That's a help. All right, we'll try that one more time. Is that any better on your side? Okay. All right. So any citizen comments? All right, seeing none, I think the next item on here is going to be consideration of election of a chair and vice chair pursuant to the bylaws for 2025. It's a quick year. So is there a motion? We'll start with chair and then go to vice chair if that works for the board.
Sure. I'll move that we retain our current chair for the year 2025.
I second that motion.
Okay, so motion made to keep Chairman Langley as the chair for 2025. So motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we've got a chair. Is there a vice chair who wants to step up? Is there a motion there? Or a willingness? That might be the other part of it.
I'm willing to do it, unless you want to do it, William.
That's right. I have no preference.
Oh, I nominate William Scales to be vice chair.
Okay, motion made to appoint Vice Chair Scales. I'll second that motion.
I don't know if I can tell. Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we have a chair and vice chair making progress on a January 2nd night here with low microphones. All right, so next, consideration of approval of the December 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion for approval made by Board Member Scales, second by Board Member Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, minutes are approved. So next, it's going to be item number 3. It's a variance request to reduce the minimum parking requirement from 16 spaces to 0 spaces for the property located at 117 3rd Avenue North. Staff?
Thank you. The subject property is located at 117 3rd Avenue North and is zoned DD Downtown District. The property is also within the Historic Preservation Overlay and the Central Franklin Overlay. The property has an existing principal building and an existing accessory structure behind the principal building. The applicant is proposing renovations to the existing accessory structure for a beer garden and outside seating. Upon submitting an application in December 2023 for a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Zoning Commission, the applicant received the following comment from staff that parking would need to be provided for the commercial use. Be advised that parking must be provided for the new use. The downtown district provides exceptions for additional parking when the use was legally established prior to the effective date of the ordinance. Staff has no record that any commercial use was previously legally established in this structure. The COA was approved with the condition that the application must meet all requirements of the City of Franklin prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant then submitted a building permit application in August 2024 and received the following comment from staff regarding parking. Provide parking calculations for a residential use or restaurant use. Sorry, I'll speak up a little bit. The applicant submitted a building permit application in August 2024 and received the following comment from staff regarding parking. Provide parking calculations for a restaurant use. Per the zoning ordinance, parking for restaurants, indoor and outdoor seating is 7.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area for the building and any outdoor seating area, plus 0.75 spaces per employee on the largest shift. In the building permit application, the applicant also included a parking agreement as a proposed alternative for the parking requirement. However, staff determined that the parking agreement alternative does not meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance per Chapter 10.1.10b Alternative Parking Plan. This section of the ordinance permits several alternate options for parking for sites that cannot accommodate their minimum parking requirements, such as shared parking, remote parking, and deferred parking. The applicant has not provided information that these options have been fully explored. The applicant has stated that the accessory structure has housed commercial tenants for over 20 years, but because building permits have not been pulled for these commercial uses in the accessory structure, nor have certificates of occupancy ever been requested, a commercial use for this property was never legally established with the city. This is possible because a business license can be acquired without legally establishing a use with the city, but it is not an exception from parking standards. In accordance with the parking regulation outlined above, this restaurant use within the CFO is required to provide a minimum of 16 parking spaces. The applicant is requesting to reduce the minimum parking requirement from 16 spaces to 0 spaces. I'll now go into staff analysis. The BZA may authorize a variance only when the request has met all 3 criteria in accordance with the Franklin zoning ordinance and state law. Staff has completed an analysis of the request in light of these 3 criteria. Criteria 1. Where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property at the time of the enactment of the zoning ordinance, or by reason of exceptional topographic conditions or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions, such a piece of property is not able to accommodate development as required under this ordinance. In order to provide the required parking on the site, the parking would need to be located behind the principal building, which would require a driveway extending along the side of the existing principal building. There is not enough space between either side of the existing principal building and to the side lot lines to have a driveway extending to the back of the property for parking. However, the zoning ordinance allows shared parking and deferred parking alternatives for properties that cannot provide the necessary parking on the site, such as this one. The applicant has not provided information that these alternatives have been fully explored in order to comply with the zoning ordinance. Staff does not find that there are conditions of the site preventing parking alternatives which could allow development as required under the zoning ordinance. Staff finds this criteria is not met. Criteria 2. The strict application of any provision enacted under the zoning ordinance would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties for, or exceptional or undue hardship upon the owner of the property. Staff does not find that an undue hardship is caused by the strict application of the zoning ordinance in this case. While providing parking on site poses difficulties in this situation, the zoning ordinance allows alternative parking plans specifically to provide solutions for situations such as this one, so these options should be thoroughly explored to comply with the zoning ordinance. Staff finds this criteria is not met. Criteria 3. Such relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. Staff finds that this may be a detriment to the public good and does impair the intent of the zoning ordinance. The intent of the zoning ordinance regulation is to ensure that there is sufficient parking per use within their site limits or within proximity to the site utilizing alternative parking plan options to avoid straining the larger downtown area. Without providing the amount of parking that is determined to be necessary for restaurant use, staff cannot determine that there would be sufficient parking for this use simply relying on the empty parking spaces along streets within downtown or in paid lots. Staff finds that this criteria is not met. Recommended motion. Staff recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals move to deny the variance request to reduce the minimum parking requirement from 16 spaces to 0 spaces for the property located at 117 3rd Avenue North because the criteria for granting a variance have not been met. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Is the applicant present for this item? If you could step forward for us and state your name for the record and add any additional comments.
My name is Brandon Pretty with 906 Studio Architects. Additional comments. And I don't want to repeat everything that we submitted. I guess I'll just kind of summarize. I mean, I think we demonstrated that from an access standpoint, because of the existing buildings, you don't have the ability to get back there to where there would be space. And then really principally, I think we've got a parking study that we had pulled off. I think it was pulled off the city's website that we think establishes, if you look at the primary times of operation, you've got anywhere between, 50 to 60% occupancy of non-private lots. So we feel there's adequate parking within the space to provide for, what additional would be there. And I think, the last part being that has, while we understand that it wasn't, I guess, certified for lack of a better term, I mean, that's been a commercial use for quite a while. People have been in that building off the back, and, to the point that the spirit of the ordinance is, hey, you're not adding to a building, you're not building a new building somewhere. We feel that this meets that.
Okay. Any additional comments?
No, sir.
Okay. May have questions for you in a couple of minutes, but you're welcome to sit down if you'd like to.
Okay.
All right, so next we will open the public comment. Are there any citizen comments on this item? Okay, you're welcome to step forward for us, and if you can state your name and address for the record.
My name is Marla Albert. I live at 802 Blackberry Hill. I'm one of the owners of this property, so citizen representative, not sure where you want me to put me. My father purchased this building in 1987. The city auctioned it off. It was in really bad shape. And my brothers and I purchased it from him about 5 years ago. So and I'm stating this by way of addressing the lack of the CO. At that time, it was a rundown, formerly residential building that the city was begging people to do something with and start businesses in. There are records of the businesses included paying the city taxes and the city business taxes. So anyway, that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Any additional citizen comments? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to close the public comment?
Motion to close.
Motion made by Board Member Scales. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so public comment is closed. Questions from the board?
I have a question for staff. In paragraph 3 of the write-up, it references a parking agreement, but I did not see that parking agreement as one of the exhibits. Did I miss it? You said it was not adequate, but I'm not sure what.
The parking agreement was included with their building plan submittal. It
Okay.
wasn't in the BZA packet.
Can you elaborate what the parking agreement was that was not sufficient?
Yes, because the parking agreement is required by the ordinance to be in perpetuity. And the way this agreement was written, it states, this agreement shall renew on a month-to-month basis and run in perpetuity. However, Notwithstanding any provision in this agreement, either party can terminate this agreement for no reason or any reason whatsoever. So that in itself is not in perpetuity, that it can be canceled at any time.
With whom is that parking agreement, or I guess between?
It was with parking management company that has a paid parking lot, manages a paid parking lot right adjacent to the property.
Can I ask what, so the city would like to see an agreement that has no conditions, it just runs forever? Is that what the requirement is?
That is in perpetuity, yes.
Okay.
Let me ask this question. I think, and this may be like from a staff standpoint, like from the zoning ordinance, I look at this high level. You know, I can get down into the weeds, but I look at it pretty high level. So we have, per the zoning ordinance, parking requirements for restaurants, indoor and outdoor seating. If an applicant submitted a parking study justifying any other criteria, would that also be acceptable, or would you have to meet that 7.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet with the additional per employee on the largest shift? I guess I'm thinking also in the context of downtown as well.
If you're deemed a restaurant use, you have to follow the zoning ordinance, 7.5, period. The only other way to avoid that is to go through this process with the variance, or to go to BOMA, rezone your property, ask for modification of standards of your parking requirements, and provide justification as why you need a different number, why it makes sense to get a different number than what's in the zoning ordinance.
Okay. Might have more discussion on that later, but that's clear. Appreciate the response.
Any knowledge about why this issue hasn't come up before? Why it's just come up for the first? I mean, if it's been used for a commercial purpose in the past, any idea why it's? Sorry. Yeah.
Honestly, it's just nothing's been brought to us before. There may have been businesses operating, but staff was unaware, never gave,
There's been no
approvals.
complaint. There's been no reason to know about it.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. There's no other kind of factual questions. Is there a motion to open up for discussion maybe in a few minutes?
I do want to ask the app, sir. Can you stand back up real quick, please? Is there any reason that you or your client has not commissioned its own independent parking study?
I mean, I think given the available information, it didn't seem like it was necessary. I mean, this is from 2022, so a pretty recent parking study of the downtown area. Felt like it provided the information we needed.
And what would be the maximum occupancy of the establishment your client's creating?
And I apologize, I'm going off the top of my head. I haven't looked at the drawings in a few weeks. I may actually ask my owner because
Yeah.
you remember what our max? 75.
75.
Yeah, and that's the outdoor seating area there, and then there's a small space inside.
Okay. And you like to have 75 occupants and then no parking for those 75 occupants, just to rely on what the city currently has.
Yeah, and that's a maximum load based on the occupant load in the IBC. I mean, that's a pretty high level of what would be required there.
From a business plan perspective, how many employees will your business have on a regular basis? Sure. I mean, whoever knows the answer to that question. Okay. So 5 employees. Yes. And then whatever patrons come to the establishment. Okay. Thank you, sir. Unless you guys.
Is there a motion?
Can I just raise a data point?
We close the public comment.
Motion to close.
Or, I guess, is there a motion
I'm sorry.
for, you're good.
I'm sorry.
We're all kind of trudging through this one between mics that are soft and
A motion with respect to some action on this item?
Yep.
I'm going to make a motion to deny the requested variance from the minimum parking requirement from 16 to 0 spaces for the property located at 117 3rd Avenue North because the criteria for granting a variance have not been met.
Okay. So a motion for disapproval made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Board Member Smith. All right, we'll move into discussion next.
Yeah, I'm struggling a lot with this one. It does seem like the topography of the area reduces their ability to have parking in back, and I can't deny that. But, you know, is this therefore the appropriate location to put this restaurant, this business? Particularly, we can have up to 75 people that are trying to find parking in downtown Franklin, which is already quite busy sometimes on the evenings. And so I raise that to have a discussion with you all about if you share those concerns.
I do, because, I mean, parking is a challenge, but I also know that parking lot that's adjacent to this property. I've been in that property a number of times and parked in that parking lot, and rarely, now I'm not there probably at 7 o'clock on a Friday night, but rarely is that parking lot full.
Okay.
So, I understand the requirements of the ordinance. So I struggle as well. On one hand, the last thing I want is more blacktop in Franklin. But on the other hand, parking is a premium during high peak, like event times, when I would think this use would be very popular. So I do kind of struggle, but I'm not sure there's a solution for them other than making an arrangement with the lot in perpetuity, which would be very difficult. If I were owner of the lot, I wouldn't give an agreement in perpetuity.
Yeah, I share those sentiments. I think I look at this, because we're looking at one isolated decision based on 3 criteria. But let's just envision for 1 minute, we're trying to fill up vacancies in downtown Franklin, prices that are a premium. So is the answer to that, no, you've got to have 16 spaces to have this use in the rear? I don't know that that's kind of what we're after, like at the end of the day. I do feel like if I'm looking for a front row spot, it's going to be difficult to find. Is there parking in downtown Franklin? I think the answer to that is yes. No doubt. So I'm torn as well. I always, parking variances that come before us, I'm like, this is a tough one. It's like fence variances where we can try to justify the 3 criteria, but it's very difficult. We can base it around topography, which could be legit, but it's very difficult to me. So in many ways, I feel like it's a broader issue downtown that we're going to have to deal with as Columbia Avenue develops. There's a large vacant property there. Will the city build a deck? Will a private property owner build a deck? That's probably longer term solution. But I do think of other cities where I've been where they have, downtown restaurants. That's kind of the end result. Either you price parking so that it's more efficient overall, kind of market demand, so that you don't have, employees parking on the prime spots downtown. So whether it's that side or private public partnership on decks. But I struggle with this one for that result because I feel like the answer is not, you can't have this use because of parking downtown when it's going to be like the density, it's going to be a challenge without some broader solution. or flexible options. You know, that's the other part to me is, you know, if we stick with the zoning requirements per space, you know, if I as an applicant come in and say, hey, I've got this parking study that demonstrates the peak hours of this, because staff wouldn't know this either, I don't feel like, but if an applicant could come in and demonstrate that, that would change the dialogue. Does the current ordinance allow that? It doesn't sound like it. Does that also mean that the same applicants identifying the same parking spaces? Possibly, you know, everybody's going to justify those. If it's 5 restaurants, they're all going to point to those same parking spaces in the study, but that's my general thoughts.
Yeah, one other thing that's interesting, the way the write-up is worded makes me think that maybe staff thinks there might be an alternative, but that alternative had not been fully explored. So maybe not kill the dream, but maybe right now is not, based on what information we have, is not viable based on the ordinance.
I felt the same way when I started. That's why I was trying to explore with the applicant about, you know, what other information might you bring before us to help us reach a conclusion. John, I think you make excellent points that this is a growing city. And, you know, this could be a positive addition to the community. And just in time, the parking catches up. But are we creating an issue? Because I'm sure there are going to be more of these that come before us. Or are we benefiting just this particular applicant? And that's a hard one. But I think you make a very good point. That would be nice to see if there's additional information that could come before us to help us resolve this issue.
Yeah, I do agree with your comment about the parking in perpetuity. I can remember when the provision was first added to the zoning ordinance, I thought, well, what property owner would ever do that?
I would not.
I mean, it solves it long term, but it's difficult if you're the owner of the property to make that long term decision, especially if it's prime real estate. You don't know what's going to happen to that in 10 years. All right, so we have a motion for disapproval of the variance. So let's go one by one. So Board Member Scales.
I vote against my motion based on our discussions.
Okay, so I'm going to vote no as well on the denial. So you're voting down the disapproval then?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm voting down the disapproval as well. So Board Member Smith.
I'm voting for the disapproval.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so motion fails then
Fails.
for disapproval, 2 against, 1 for.
And I'll make a second motion. I'm going to move that we defer the. Yeah. Bill, if, Mr. Squires, if we defer this, can we defer this such that the applicant can go back, maybe get some additional information that may help us respond or resolve some of these challenges we have and then come back to us? Is that something that's possible through a deferral?
Yeah, you can defer for whatever reason you all conclude is appropriate in terms of hearing it again at a future date. As long as you set that date certain, you're good to go.
Okay. Can I ask the applicant a question before we make that motion?
Certainly, it's up to the chair, but
Yeah.
sure.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm sorry.
I think that's helpful just to know kind of what, because I think one is just knowing like what information could be provided. I think that would help us out, at least kind of know where we're headed.
Yep.
That's a question right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's it.
Is there any additional information, and it's probably staff and the applicant, but just what else could the applicant provide, or is the answer there's nothing they could provide?
one little point too, I think you were exactly right with that in perpetuity wording is, that's been I think we wanted to get a lease agreement to provide those spaces because that adjacent lot, it's not full hardly ever. There's capacity there. I think our problem is exactly what y'all said, like who's going to agree to a blanket forever and ever clause so if there's something we can do to modify that wording to be something an owner would agree to that we could sign with, we definitely want to meet that. We just haven't been able to find out how.
Yeah, and I don't want to turn this into a wheel and deal
can-
session, but I guess that's the question for staff. If y'all could help us there, is there anything
Yeah.
else the applicant could provide that would satisfy the?
Well, I know what. Can everyone hear me okay? Something that we were looking at is, there's several different options in the zoning ordinance for alternative parking plans when you cannot park your parking spaces on your site. Shared parking is one of them, as is remote parking. And there's that language of perpetuity in there so that we ensure that the spaces are there for the life of the business. There's also valet parking, remote parking. So there's 4 options that an applicant can use. I think staff would be interested to know how have they exhausted those options.
That's fine.
We were only provided one option. So, something that they could do is look at the properties around them and tell us they've gone to this business owner and they've been turned down. They've gone to this business owner, have been turned down. So we know that they've tried and they've reached a wall. We don't know that right now. So
Okay.
I would also say staff did struggle with some of the things that you are struggling with as you discuss this issue. And I find that we still have to be mindful of the criteria. Parking is a discussion at the BOMA level right now, and it seems like it's a larger discussion. But for BZA, we're looking at it against the criteria of the zoning ordinance. So remember to be mindful of that.
Okay. So we've got a motion for disapproval, I think,
Motion for deferral.
deferral.
Yeah.
We've been there, hadn't we, before on disapproval?
William,
motion
do you
for
have a-
deferral.
Do you have a date?
That's what I need to get to from this. So, sir, would you like 2 months, 3 months?
The next meeting would be February 6th, I believe, is the very next
Yeah.
board meeting.
No, I mean, I think we'd like to get it resolved as quickly as we can, so we're happy to defer to the next meeting and come back with, haven't had the chance to exhaust some more.
You said February 6th was that date?
It's the first, February 6th is the first Thursday in February. If y'all can make sure that's matching, that way I don't set it on a date and we're here on a
Yes,
special
that's
meeting.
correct.
Okay.
As fun as this is.
So I moved we defer this item to the February 6, 2025 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Second.
Motion for a deferral by Board Member Scales, second by Board Member Smith. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, seeing none, this item is deferred to the February 6th board meeting.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right. So next item, it's going to be a variance request to allow 20 parking spaces within the Liberty Pike frontage area for a principal building for the property located at 230 Franklin Road. Staff.
Thank you. The subject property is located at 230 Franklin Road.
Bring the microphone up to your mouth. We really
Thank you. The subject property,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they may be turned, I can't hear anything on y'all's side at all. I wonder if they're off on that section.
I was in contact with our our communications department, and they said this is as loud as the microphones can go. Anything else will offset the sound on the video. So this is it. Sorry, we'll talk
I'll
as
speak
loud as we
louder.
can.
Thank you.
Those of you that can't hear may be good if you come to the front row. You might be able to hear a bit better.
All for the viewers. We don't care about the people at the meeting.
The subject property is located at 230 Franklin Road and is zoned PD Plan District. The property is also located within the Historic Preservation Overlay and the Central Franklin Overlay. The existing buildings on the property are the factory at Franklin, which is a historically significant site, which also contains various commercial uses. The factory is proposing a hotel and additional parking on the property. The parking for the proposed hotel must comply with the zoning ordinance regulations, which include the frontage requirements in Chapter 7.5 for landscape frontage. Landscape frontage requires that parking be located behind or to the side of the principal building. The proposed parking layout places 20 parking spaces within the Liberty Pike frontage area of the hotel building. In December 2024, the Historic Zoning Commission provided a favorable recommendation to the FMPC and the BOMA for the proposed additions to the alterations of the site. The HCZ provided preliminary recommendations to the other city review bodies on development applications in the HPO where certain contextually sensitive design features become entitled to by BOMA prior to the certificate of appropriateness review by the HCC. Preliminary recommendations focus on the scale, massing, and placement of buildings to conform for the BOMA that there have been a general observance within. Sorry about that. Ooh, I got a lot louder.
We can hear you now, at least.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Threw me off for a second. Preliminary recommendations focus on the scale, massing, and placement of the buildings to confirm for the BOMA that there has been a general observance with the Historic District Design Guidelines. The proposal was also submitted in November 2024 in a development plan revision application, which will require accommodation by the FMPC and approval by the BOMA. Within the development plan revision application, the applicant included a shared parking study to justify the necessary and provided parking as permitted by Section 10.1.10 of the zoning ordinance, alternative parking plans. The shared parking study shows that 912 parking spaces are necessary for the site, and they are proposing 1,066 parking spaces. Without the shared parking study, the zoning ordinance regulations would require 1,532 parking spaces on the site. While this study has been submitted with the development plan revision, the information provided was not sufficient so staff has requested more information that has not yet been provided, and the plan has not been fully reviewed by staff or approved by the board. For this reason, staff cannot say at this point if the parking information provided is accurate or sufficient. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow 20 parking spaces within the Liberty Pike frontage area for the proposed hotel. I'll now go into staff analysis for the three criteria. Criteria 1, where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property at the time of the enactment of the zoning ordinance, or by reason of exceptional topographic conditions or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions, such a piece of property is not able to accommodate development as required under this ordinance. There is no condition of the site that is preventing all the required parking from being to the side or behind the principal building. The location of the historic buildings has not prevented the creation of additional parking spaces on the site, as verified in their preliminary recommendation for a parking structure. The parking in the frontage area is desired for customer convenience, but is not a situation that is necessary due to the conditions of the site. Staff finds this criteria is not met. Criteria 2. The strict application of any provision enacted under the zoning ordinance would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties for, or exceptional or undue hardship upon the owner of the property. The strict application of the zoning ordinance does not restrict or prevent the required parking from being located to the side or rear of the principal building. Vehicular circulation could remain at this location without the parking in the frontage. While the applicant has stated that the desired location of parking within the frontage area would be more convenient for customers, it is not an exceptional situation for customers to walk from surface parking to the principal building for a large site such as this one. All spaces on the site must seem to be within a walkable distance similar to or less than the distance used for the zoning ordinance's alternative parking plan standards. Staff finds this criteria is not met. Criteria 3, such relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and would not substantially impair the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. The design of the site would not be a detriment to the public good, but it would impair the intent of the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance introduced the requirements for frontage starting with the 2019 zoning ordinance update as a direct response to the adoption of Envision Franklin in 2017. Two of the core guiding principles are exceptional design and vibrant neighborhoods. One characteristic of exceptional design, as outlined in Envision Franklin, is that parking should be secondary to the building and its relationship to the street, and that views from the street should not be of parking lots. One characteristic of vibrant neighborhoods, as outlined in Envision Franklin, includes pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods that make walking and biking more enjoyable along streets. The intent of the zoning ordinance is to reinforce the principles of Envision Franklin, and in this case, it's by keeping parking to the side or behind principal buildings for specified districts. Having parking for the hotel in the frontage area prioritizes the convenience for customers over the intent of the zoning ordinance for pedestrian engagement between the street and the building. The other intent of the zoning ordinance is to park a site with sufficient but not excessive parking spaces. The applicant has explained in their justification letter that their shared parking study shows that the site only requires 912 parking spaces and that their site design proposes 1,066 spaces, inclusively of these 20 non-compliant spaces. If the study were to be approved by staff, the 20 spaces requested with this variance are not required for the site to maintain their minimum parking needs. However, the parking study has not yet been approved through the development plan application review process. Staff finds this criteria is not met. Recommended motion. Staff recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals move to deny the variance request to allow 20 parking spaces within the Liberty Pike frontage area for a principal building for the property located at 230 Franklin Road because the criteria for granting a variance have not been met. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. If the applicant could step forward for us, and if you can state your name.
Hi, thank you. My name is Greg Gamble, and I'm representing Holiday, the current owners of the factory in Franklin. And would you mind pulling up my submittal for me? There are 3 plans that I would like to review with the board. Holiday continues to make improvements at the factory, and I hope you've had a chance to go by and see the improvements that they've made. They're introducing some new businesses. They're kind of changing the atmosphere and the spirit of the place. And a lot of the activity that you've seen regarding with the construction has been to create these pedestrian connections back out to the public street. The factory is somewhat of a square peg in a round hole as it relates to the adopted 2019 zoning ordinance. It was constructed in the 1800s. And in the 1900s, and it's now on the National Registry of Historic Places. Parking lots were built along Franklin Road. Parking lots were built along Liberty Pike. We have 2 variances that have been already approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals, one along Franklin Road because of this issue regarding parking in the frontage of the building. And same or similarly on Liberty Pike, that parking is between the building and the public street. We have, if you'll go to the next slide for me. Thank you. We have a, where'd my sheet go? Excuse me. We have a number of improvements that are being proposed with a new development plan revision that will be submitted very soon to the Planning Commission. In addition to the zoning ordinance requirements, we also have historic overlay guidelines. Those historic overlay guidelines require that any new structure be subordinate to the principal structures that are on the property that are historic. So located right here, hidden by the TV screen. Is there a better screen to look at? Probably not for Dorinda. But if it could slide over just a little bit. Is a new proposed hotel. It's a 120-room boutique hotel that will be connected to the restaurants, the conference space that's existing within the factory now. Thank you, Amy. In addition to the new hotel in the back by Jameson Hall, Holiday is proposing a new parking structure that would have approximately 250 parking spaces. At the main entrance off of Liberty Pike, we are realigning the entrance drive from mid-block at Jameson Station to directly across from Daniels Drive. That enables us to have a 4-way intersection there, and it's a lot safer for pedestrians and traffic movements. We are improving the pedestrian accesses to the factory from Liberty Pike. We're improving the ADA access, and we're adding a new drop-off for the hotel. These are all significant improvements. And though we're only proposing 20 parking spaces within the frontage between the new hotel and Liberty Pike, and though that seems very minimal, it's important to point out that parking is not just a matter of quantity. It's also a matter of distribution. The distance from the railroad track to Franklin Road on the factory is 1,600 linear feet. The distance from Starbucks to Landmark Books is 1,600 linear feet. So that helps you kind of get a sense of walkability, the distances that we're talking about from these parking spaces. The new parking garage is really focused on providing close proximate parking to Jameson Hall, to the restaurants that are associated in the main food hall. On the east side, we're looking at parking that's distributed primarily for the hotel and for Liberty Hall. This entrance right here, the existing entrance today has 46 parking spaces in it. All 46 of those parking spaces go away with the new design as it aligns with Daniels. You'll notice that here the hotel sits back from the main facade of the factory. That's because, according to the historic guidelines, it has to be subordinate to the factory, so we're not allowed to bring it closer to Liberty Pike. It has to sit back so that it's subordinate. If you'll go to the next slide for me. Next one, sorry, one more. Okay, so this green line right here, that is where the frontage line along Liberty Pike starts. It's not down here at Hattie B's or along Etch. It's back here in this location. So the 20 parking spaces we're talking about are right here. And there is a stormwater facility that will be a rain garden that's proposed between those parking spaces and the main entrance drive. That's where the pedestrian activity will occur. So where we have the new landscaping, it's going to sit back from that. There are 6 existing parking spaces that are within that frontage area today. And so the increase would be an additional 14 parking spaces. Regarding criteria 1, this property is unique, and this situation is exceptional. The preservation of this unique and special campus in Franklin is at the forefront of all design decisions. So making sure that we have protected the historic resource that the factory is and its campus. These 20 parking spaces are critical to supporting the eastern side of the factory. Regarding criteria 2, this zoning requirement is a hardship on the factory. The realigned drive is an improvement for circulation and pedestrian access, and the result is a loss of 46 spaces on this eastern side of the campus. A variance to allow these 20 spaces would provide appropriate parking distribution for the uses that are located on this eastern side. Regarding criteria 3, this variance is similar in nature to the 2 already granted variances along Franklin Road and Liberty Pike, where parking is located between the buildings and the public right-of-way. In both of those improvements and in this proposed plan, a focus is placed on clear pedestrian pathways and walkways from the public streets to the front doors of the factory. This proposed parking is well to the side of the pedestrian way and does not create a detriment to the public good. It does not diminish the goals of the zoning ordinance nor Envision Franklin, as it provides as it relates to the exceptional design and vibrant neighborhoods. To the contrary, the new design promotes and enhances the factory's connection to the neighborhood. These 20 parking spaces with new landscape buffers and parking lot trees will improve the experience of patrons and the neighbors. There is a landscape hedgerow that's required, as well as street trees along Liberty Pike that will be added with the next phase of development. The existing detention basin that's out there now right before you get to the railroad track, that's going to be put underground underneath the parking lot. So again, we're really trying to enhance Liberty Pike, bring new landscape in, and create a parking area that reflects our new zoning ordinance criteria regarding landscaping, trees, parking islands, et cetera. So happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we will open the public comment. Are there any citizen comments on this item?
My name is Paul Lebovitz. I live at 102 Winslow Road. I live directly across from the factory. I know they've gotten variances at this project, and they've gotten, can't think of the development term, but seems like they're always coming in here to ask for something else. And I think that if they can just rethink their parking on the property, I don't see us losing any landscape frontage. The city has put this in their landscape requirements for years, and I don't see giving any of it up. And it looks to me, when I'm looking at the drawing, that we're going to lose some right where the pedestrians already have a sidewalk. Right now, there's a green cushion from that sidewalk to that big parking lot. So if that's going to be reduced, I think that's a problem. I don't see it enhancing pedestrians at all. And when they've made their other improvements up on Liberty Pike, the landscape that's been there 25 or 30 years, which had mature trees 50 feet tall, all that was gone. So that sort of goes to give another variance, I think flies in the face of why do we have a landscape ordinance if somebody can come in, change things. They've already torn down one part. I hate to lose anything else that's mature at this time. I'd also say regarding parking, since the factory is redeveloped, I don't see a bike rack. I don't see small car spaces. I don't see motorcycle spaces. Maybe there's a place they can change their arrangement somewhere else. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments from citizens? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to close the public comment?
Motion to close?
Motion made by Board Member Scales,
Second.
second by Board Member Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, public comments closed. Questions from the board of staff or the applicant?
I have a question. There was some reference to additional information requested by the staff for the parking study, I suppose.
Development plan?
Yeah. When will that information be available? And also to staff, how long will it take once you get that information to review it?
I'm happy to answer too, Amy.
The parking study was provided to staff today. It was not part of their application submittal. It was submitted separately as an email. We have a meeting that we are setting up to discuss the parking study. I believe that's next week, Wednesday. And I don't know if I can tell you when we will have it done and satisfied by staff. I know looking at it today, I still had several questions that I'd like to have answered at that meeting. I don't know that the numbers line up for me yet. So I anticipate maybe some numbers changing, but I'm not sure. So I can't tell you the answer. Their resubmittal is planned, I believe, for February 6th. Their documents to be formally resubmitted on February 6th in anticipation of going to the Planning Commission in February and then on to BOMA with that development plan revision.
So question process-wise then, if it's a development plan revision, that would get approved by the board, correct, without a variance request at all? Or would it still need to meet the parking requirements?
I mean, I think you can do it a couple of different ways. I mean, I know they would like, well, I'm not going to speak for them, but one opportunity is to get the variance in place ahead of BOMA so that when the board is considering the plan, they know that those spaces have been approved. Another process is that staff could just put a condition of approval that parking be provided to meet the zoning ordinance upon one stop or at site plan. So there's a couple of different ways I think you can do it.
Gotcha.
Parking variations from the frontage chapter in the zoning ordinance is not allowed as a modification of standards. It has to come before the Board of Zoning Appeals if we want to have parking that is in the frontage.
Okay. Yep, and I think that's helpful. Your comment there, to me, even kind of citizen comments, we're looking at, and I almost feel like I need to go back and restate the variance request to allow 20 spaces within the frontage area off Liberty Pike. So we're not looking at landscaping requirements because they're already required. It's really the parking in this frontage area. That's what I need to make. Maybe other board members don't, but that's what I need to kind of make a mental note of, just to kind of keep it in the back of my mind. So.
And we're not compromising on the required landscape buffer requirements from parking lot to Liberty Pike. We're not. We're gonna. Those are consistent with what the zoning ordinance requires. And where we have the rain garden, we're actually increasing the amount of open space in that area. And I hope that was clear from our graphics where we're showing before and after. When we're removing those 46 parking spaces that are existing today, yes, we're putting in drive aisle and some stacking lanes for people to be able to get in and out of the factory parking lot better, we're actually increasing the amount of open space in that location. So I hope that's helpful.
Any additional questions? Okay, ready to entertain a motion if board members are ready.
I move we approve the variance request for the property located at 230 Franklin Road, because I believe the criteria for granting the variance have been met.
Motion for approval made by Board Member Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Scales. Any discussion?
Yeah, I've got some comments. Yeah, a couple of things. One is when I look at the graphic of the proposal and look at where those 20 spaces are and envision that they are not there because we don't allow it, it looks like it's going to be pavement and anyway, and it's going to be cars. So when I look at the specific requirements stated under number 3, the view of the street should not be of parking lots. I don't think this 20 spaces, if we don't allow it, is going to impact that. And I think that the characteristics of the design is going to be, parking will be secondary to the buildings. The factory is humongous and so unique that it's going to dominate the view, and I don't think the 20 spaces impact that. So that's why I would support this variance. And one other thing I do want to say, and Amy, I mean, this is really important to me. My husband has limited mobility, and we were at the factory several times and have not been able to get handicap parking because it's been full. And so I circle the lots frequently. And so when we talk about convenience, for someone who has difficulty walking 3 blocks from Starbucks to Landmark, convenience is kind of important, particularly when the handicap parking is full. So, convenience is kind of an important thing, particularly for me because of my husband, and also because I'm old. I don't necessarily want to walk a lot of distance, and it might be something that would keep me from going to the factory if I was going to have to go from Starbucks to Landmark in order to get from one side to the other. So.
Yep, I agree with your comments. I appreciate the applicant kind of through the application. Sometimes we get applications that aren't very detailed and the layout of site design. So I appreciate you guys including that in there. It helps me out, just kind of understand the application. I'm very familiar with the site, but I'm not as familiar with the new uses going in. So that helps me out. I also think the historic guidelines of the property, that's definitely criteria 1. I think the applicants demonstrated that. So in my mind, it's a different situation. We have looked at another variance request on this site. Each variance request may stand on its own, but I feel like it's a similar issue, similar context. So that's why I support the variance. I feel like the criteria are met.
And I agree. I think the criteria met. I think your points were excellent points, and I agree with them. And same with you, John. I think your points were excellent points, and I agree with those too.
Okay, so motion for approval and a second. Let's go just one by one. Board Member Scales.
Approve.
Board Member Langley, approve, and Board Member Smith.
Approve.
All right, so this variance request is approved. And we are down to, I think, a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Motion made by Board Member Smith to adjourn,
Second.
second by Board Member Scales. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you. You as well.
Thanks IT staff too for helping us with the mics. We appreciate that.